People always have a big question about what should be your longest training run for a marathon. Most training regimens require usually a 20-mile run once or twice during your training cycle. That's probably about the most you really need to do. More advanced runners may do a 22 or 24 miler, but I think beginners and first-time marathoners, really 2 20-mile runs should be all you really need. People always wonder about tapering for their race. Typically, 2 to 3 weeks before race day is when you start to decrease your race mileage. Usually your last long run's gonna be 3 weeks before your race day, so you can start slowly tapering your mileage so you can feel a little more fresh for your race. You don't wanna taper too much because too much tapering, you might get a little stale. So some people wonder if they should carry their own water or their own gels with them during a race. I don't think you need to carry your own water with you because there's plenty of water stops on the race, so you don't necessarily need to carry those. Gels, oftentimes I do recommend people carrying their own gels. Depending on what company the race is sponsored by, they may have a completely different gel than you're used to, and they may mess up with your stomach, especially as you're trying to run. So you want to typically use what you're used to on race day. People always wonder what to do when they hit the wall. Hitting the wall means basically you feel like you've lost complete energy, you have nothing left in the tank, and you may have, who knows how many miles, you may have a half a marathon left, you may only have 3 miles left. Really at that point, I think it's a lot of psychological mind games that you have to play with yourself, looking for something in the distance, looking for a sign, looking for something to say, I'm gonna run up until that point, and then I'll walk for a minute. I'm gonna look for another thing, and I'm gonna walk for another minute. Just is another way to play mind games just to get yourself to the finish line. So some people wonder about what types of things they can do mentally to try to help them get through a race and prepare for a race. A lot of times the mental work needs to be done before the race, practicing on imagery, practicing on remembering how strong you are, how hard you've worked, how much you've done to get to this point, and then trying to remember that during the middle of a race when you're really starting to feel tired. Think about how hard you've worked and just kind of mentally go back to that picture of yourself running strong. People always ask me about their first marathon experiences and what should their time goal be. I tell all my patients that you should not have a time goal for your first marathon. The first marathon is all about finishing. It's an accomplishment to finish 26.2 miles, so I wouldn't worry about a time goal. A lot of times that puts too much undue pressure on yourself. Also, there's so much that gets involved with a marathon that you don't have control over. How hot it might be, how humid it might be. There may be a lot of different things going on in maybe even your family life. You didn't get a good night's sleep, your child was sick. So you're trying to put too much pressure on yourself to have a time goal. I think it's the wrong way to go with the first marathon. I think your first marathon should be about finishing strong. Maybe a goal should be, I'm not gonna walk at all. I'm gonna try to run a pace so I can run the whole way. And that might be a better goal rather than a time goal. People want to know, when is it the right time? How do they know they're ready for race day? Even elite marathoners oftentimes don't feel like they're ready for race day. When they toe the line, they're nervous, the butterflies are going. I think everybody feels that way. So to feel that way is not uncommon. Just gotta have to trust your training, the fact that you've been training for 18 to 20 to 22 weeks for this one day. You spent all that time, blood, sweat, and tears and effort behind your training. Trust your training blog, and say, I put in the time and effort and I'm ready.